All right, you guys. Just to show you how much I truly do love you, I was already in bed. And I realized that I didn't do the videos yet for tomorrow morning, and I want to make sure that they're going to load. So I got up and got my computer, and now I'm back in bed, and I'm going to make your videos. So this is a first. I've never taught from sitting up in my bed before, but here goes. I even have, ooh, blinded by the light. I even have my diffusers already going. I mean, I was done. I was ready to go to sleep. Oh, this whole coronavirus is crazy. Okay. So let's talk about chapter 23. A lot of stuff goes on in 23. I love the fact that we see Atticus and we see his sense of humor a little bit. This light is a glare. I'm going to turn that one off. All right, so we see his sense of humor. Um, when the kids ask him about it, the only comment that he has about Bob Ewell spitting in his face is he says, I wish Bob Ewell wouldn't chew tobacco. So think about this. It's gross enough that somebody spits in your face, but now the fact that they got a wad of chewing tobacco in their mouth and they spit that juice, that's really disgusting. All right. So they hear the story from Miss Stephanie, and it says in the book that by the time she's told it twice, she was coming out of the Jitney Jingle, which is one of the stores. And the thing is that we know she wasn't there. She was out on the sidewalk talking to Miss Maudie and Mr. Avery when the kids came out of their house, and Miss Maudie said, come on inside my house and have some cake. And when they came out, she was still on the sidewalk talking to Mr. Avery, and Miss Rachel came up saying, danger's coming. And this is then Stephanie tells them, oh, did you hear what happened? She never left. So she wasn't there. But remember, she's the town gossip. So by the time she tells the story, you better believe she's going to act like she was there so that she's, all in the know. But anyway, the story goes that Atticus didn't even react. Bob Ewell spits in his face, cusses at him, calls him all kinds of names and everything, and says that he'll get him if it's the last thing that he does. So he threatens him. And Atticus takes out his handkerchief, wipes off his face, and just stands there and takes it. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't get angry. He is the Atticus that we've seen over and over and over again, where he is in total control of his emotions, calm in all situations, whether it's a house burning down, a mad dog coming, or Bob Ewell spitting in your face. Okay? Ewell just keeps swearing at him. He's like, oh, what's the matter, you blankety blank? You too proud to fight? And Atticus says, nope, too old. He puts his hands in his pockets and walks away. Think about that. Who fights? Children fight. Because they're impulsive, they can't control their tempers. Grown-ups don't fight. They don't fist fight. They talk about it. They use their heads the way Atticus has said. Use your head. It's a good one. Okay? So he says, nope, too old. Like, I outgrew that a long time ago. Okay? And he walks away. So the kids are super worried about this. They're really scared for Atticus. They try a couple of different ways to get him to carry a gun to protect himself, and he's like, absolutely not. That's nonsense. He says, you know what? Try to stand in Bob Ewell's shoes for a minute. In court, I just feel like this is too dark. The video is really grainy looking on my end. Hence the reason I don't make videos from my room, I guess. I don't know. All right. So he says, try to see it from Bob Ewell's point for a minute. Like, stand in his shoes. I shredded whatever credibility he had, if he had any, in court. All right? He has to have a way to come back after that. He has to have a way to kind of save his pride. And he says, so if swearing at me and spitting in my face saves Mayella Ewell from one extra beating, then I'm willing to take it. Kind of a different way to look at things, isn't it? make sure you understand what the penalty is for Tom. If they appeal this case to the higher courts and they lose, Tom will go to the electric chair. He will get the death penalty. So there's a lot of talk here about juries and laws and change in laws and serving on a jury. And I really like one of the statements that Atticus says, that when you serve on a jury, it forces a man to make up his mind and to declare it. A lot of times you can just go with the crowd, but when you're on a jury, you have to say your vote. You got to declare what it is, and you got to stand up for it. You can't just go along with the crowd. You got to be willing to say, this is my vote. He talks about how usually in a case like this, it only takes a few minutes for the jury to come back, but this time it took them a few hours, and he really feels good about that. You know, he's like, there's no way we were going to win, but we at least made them think about it, which hasn't happened before. And then he points out to Jem that one of the men on the jury is one of the Cunninghams from the night before at the jail, one of the mob. The night before, they were there to kill Tom with no trial. And now he's on the jury. And Atticus doesn't throw him off the jury because he knows that sometimes people change their minds once they hear the facts. And he knows that he earned their respect the night before outside the jail. And he's counting on that respect again. So yeah, one of the Cunninghams wanted an acquittal, which means he wanted to find Tom innocent. And it took the rest of them a long time to get him to change his mind. So then we have a whole conversation with Aunt Alexandra and the kids talking about the Cunninghams, and Scout says, you know, I tried to beat him up, but when school starts, I'm going to invite him over. Maybe he can stay over and play. Maybe he can spend the night. Sometimes we're going to be real good friends. And Aunt Alexandra's like, you are not going to be good friends. Absolutely not. He is not one of our people. And Scout, being the innocence of a child, she doesn't understand what that means, our people. He's not one of our kind. And finally, Aunt Alexandra just says that he is trash. And you can't be hanging around with him. You're enough of a problem for your father as it is. Well, Scout starts to cry. Jem takes her in his room. He tries to make her feel better, that kind of thing. He offers her a chew, which doesn't mean chewing tobacco. It means a Tootsie Roll. And then, you know, he's trying to make her feel better. So he's like, Scout, look at this. And he unbuttons the top of his shirt and he shows her. And apparently he has one chest hair. Remember, he's 13 or almost 13. And he's sure he sees one. Scout doesn't see anything, but she's like, he tried to be nice to me. So that's mighty nice, Jem. And just another one of those, which if we were in class, I would have so many of these to point out to you all the time about how Harper Lee just really does a great job of making this realistically being told from the kids. There's all kinds of these little kid-isms thrown in here, and this is just one of them. Maybe a few of you can relate. Growing your first chest hairs. I saw a few mustaches starting out there in some of the videos. Anyway, Scout says, you know, it wasn't the part where she said that I'm a problem for Atticus. Like, that part didn't bother me. Atticus and I talked about it, and he says I'm not that much of a problem and nothing he can't handle anyway. But it was the part where where Alexandra called Walter trash. And she said, he ain't trash, Jem. He's not like the Yules. So in her mind, even as an 8-year-old, she's got it figured out that the Yules are trash. Immoral, lazy, awful people. The Cunninghams are not that. The Cunninghams are good, moral, hardworking people that never take anything that they can't pay back. There's a world of difference between those two families. They might both be white, they might both be poor, but they are definitely not the same. On your test, that's one of the questions that I normally ask as a short answer of explain how the Yules and the Cunninghams are similar but yet different. Well, they're both white and they're both poor, but that's where their similarities end. There's a huge difference between these two families. Okay? At this point, Jem talks about how he's figured out in his many years, he's thought about it, and he's figured out that there's 4 kinds of folks in the world. There's folks like them and the neighbors. There's folks like the Cunninghams out in the woods. There's folks like the Yules down by the dumps. And then there's the Negroes. Think back to those notes that I gave you starting this book when I told you that the social hierarchy that existed, number one was the rich whites, the Finches and their neighbors. Number two was the hardworking, moral whites, the Cunninghams. Number three in society was the lazy, immoral whites, the Yules. And number four was all African Americans. Whether they were good, bad, or indifferent, they all get lumped together in one category where the whites get divided into three categories, and they're lowest of the low, even below horrible, nasty, immoral white people. So this points out to you that Jem already has this understanding of society, and he's able to put it into words. And the way he presents it to Scout, he accepts it. It's just the way it is. He isn't understanding that it's not okay. He just says, this is how it is, and that's the way it's got to be. Fortunately, Scout hasn't come to that point yet, and she's like, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think there's just one kind of folks. Folks is folks. We're all the same. And he says, yeah, I used to think that when I was younger too. But if that's the case, then why can't we all get along? And that's a really good question. I think it's a question that needs to be asked to every person, every society, every age, every race, culture, nationality, color, whatever, gender, whatever. Why can't we get along? Why are we always trying to put down somebody else? Why can't we just get along? Jem makes a huge statement at the very end of the chapter. He says, you know what? I think I understand why Boo Radley stays inside. Maybe he wants to stay inside. Have you thought about it that way? Why would Boo Radley want to come out? To face the judgment? So that Miss Stephanie can say more crap about him? To experience this mean, cruel behavior of people towards those who are different than them? Maybe he doesn't come out because he doesn't want to. Think about that.